In the name of Allah, the most compassionate, the most merciful, and may the peace and blessings of Allah be upon His last and beloved Messenger Muhammad, and may the peace and blessings of Allah be upon you all. This is episode number 31 in the series entitled The Qur'an in Practice, and it's entitled The Unified Law for All Branches of Science, from the guidance of the Noble Qur'an. Now, to explain this title, this is an introduction for that. Now, there's a dream by scientists to find a unified theory, a unified law that will unite all the branches of science in physics, chemistry, biology, mathematics. So there is a dream to find this unified theory. And people tried to find this unified theory in physics, for example, and one of these theories is called string theory, and this theory tries to unify physics. Now, and people failed till now to find this kind of unified theory, unified law. Now, I will show in this episode how this unified law can be learned from the Noble Qur'an, the last revelation of Allah God to people, and how Allah God Almighty teaches us this law from the Book of Allah, the Noble Qur'an. And not only that this law unifies physics, but it unifies all branches of knowledge. From this law that I will show in this episode, Allah God willing, it will show how to unify physics, mathematics, biology, and using this law we can explain all the branches of knowledge, and we can derive huge technological discoveries and implementations from this kind of theory, this law. Now, this topic of how to derive this law from the Noble Qur'an is a testimony that the Noble Qur'an is from Allah God Almighty. Because the miracle of the Noble Qur'an, the miracle of the last revelation of Allah God to people, is in knowledge. Because the main theme of the people of this age is knowledge. We find so many discoveries in physics, in mathematics, in chemistry. Now, the miracle of the Noble Qur'an is in knowledge. And this miracle, I called it the miracle of knowledge of the Noble Qur'an, can be summarized as follows. Firstly, that the Noble Qur'an contains all the branches of knowledge. You want to learn the best physics, engineering, chemistry, biology, Allah Almighty teaches you all the branches of knowledge from the Noble Qur'an. Secondly, the Noble Qur'an contains the best methodology on how to derive all the branches of knowledge. Thirdly, the Noble Qur'an contains the best terminology, the terms to describe all the branches of knowledge. Now, the importance of this miracle is the following. Firstly, it testifies that the Noble Qur'an is from the Creator, Allah God Almighty, because no human, regardless of how clever he is, can encompass all the branches of knowledge. Secondly, a believer would be the teacher of others and not the one on the receiving end. Thirdly, the non-Muslims, they love knowledge. So when they see that they are learning physics, communication, biology from the Noble Qur'an, that would be kind of a way for them to be attracted to the Noble Qur'an and become Muslims. Because Allah Almighty wants guidance for people, wants mercy and not their torment. And Allah knows how to attract people to His book, the Noble Qur'an, using knowledge. Now, how to learn this unified law for all the branches of science from the Noble Qur'an? If we ponder and reflect upon verse number 30 of chapter 21 of the Noble Qur'an, which states, "Have not those who disbelieve known that the heavens and the earth were joined together as one united piece? Then Allah God tore them apart, and Allah God has made from water every living thing. Will they not then believe?" Now, if we ponder and reflect upon this Qur'an verse, we see that Allah states in this verse that He has made from water every living thing. Now, so many people understood this by saying that water is essential for life. If there is no water, there is no life. And that's false. Why? Because take for example angels. Angels are made from light, and they communicate with prophets, and they deliver the message of Allah God to people. Now angels are a living system, but the question now, do they drink water? No, the angels don't drink water. So how is the explanation that water is if there is water, if there is no water, there is no life? It makes no sense. So what's the correct explanation for this? The correct explanation is that Allah God has made from water every living thing, meaning that Allah God designed His creation with the same design and function of water. It's like water is a model for creation. And this is the unified law that unifies all branches of knowledge. Why? Because Allah teaches us here, we can deduce from this, that if we understand water, we can understand our creation. So this is the unified law, that since Allah Almighty made every living thing, creation, based on water, this means that understanding water would enable us to understand all creation. Sciences and all that. Let me give the following example. If you think about water, water is composed of two main things: matter, the thing that you feel and touch, and energy, the driving force in water. And if you think about creation, it's also composed of two main things: matter, the thing that you feel and touch, energy, the driving force in creation. So we see Allah has made from water a living thing. So we see that the design of creation is identical to that of water. So as I said, water is like a model for creation. So if you understand water, you can understand creation. That's the unified law for everything. Now, I will give three examples. In physics, the science of energy; in chemistry, the science of matter; and in biology, how to apply this law into understanding and implementing these sciences. Now, in physics, there is science of energy. Now, to understand physics, we need only to understand energy in water. So if we think about energy in water, we see that it propagates in waves. And we see that these waves are vibrating. So we can conclude from this that the energy in creation should propagate exactly in waves, and should be in a vibratory state, vibrations. And so the basic unit of energy in creation should have the same shape of water waves and should be vibrating. Now if we link this to a verse in the Qur'an in chapter 51 verse 7, which states, "And the heaven containing weaved ropes." Allah states in the Qur'an, "And the heaven containing weaved ropes." Now if we think about this, the heaven is the object, is the volume surrounding a central object. For example, you say the heaven of the earth is the object or the volume surrounding the earth. You say the heaven of the atom is the volume surrounding the nucleus of the atom. Allah states that the heaven contains weaved ropes. Now it's very interesting to note that Allah Almighty used weaved rope. So Allah teaches us that the heaven contains weaved ropes. And if we link this to what I said about water, and think about when you are standing on the earth, in the heaven of the earth, and you try to jump, you feel as something which is pulling you downward. And the best explanation for this is like there are ropes pulling you to the earth. So Allah teaches us that the gravitational field is composed of weaved ropes, which produce the pulling action between two objects. And so here we can understand that the basic unit of gravitational field, and linking that to water that should have the shape of water waves and should be vibrating, we can conclude that the basic unit comprising the gravitational field has the shape of a water wave vibrating, and that's the basic unit of gravitational energy. Linking that to another fact in the Qur'an, that the way of Allah God Almighty in creation is constant. This means that all energy forms, mechanical, electromagnetic, thermal, all of these, they have this basic vibrating ropes as the basic unit comprising these fields. So we see how from understanding water we can understand the basic units of that comprises all energy fields. And this is a dream by physicists to find the basic units of energy. And keeping in mind that the latest theory in physics, it's called string theory, and the basic premise of this theory is that all energy fields are composed of vibrating strings. Allah Almighty teaches you what's better than this. The Noble Qur'an said that you will be teacher of others, not the one of the receiving end. So Allah teaches us from this unified law the basic unit of energy comprising all energy fields, both in shape and function. Also, this explains why all energy fields produce a pulling action. For example, gravitational energy, there's a pulling action between two objects. Light energy, you see that light photons are attracted to objects, to surfaces. For example, the magnetic field, the attraction of the magnetic fields. Also, these vibrating strings, vibrating ropes that Allah describes, weave strings. Now, when they vibrate, Allah describes, when He describes in the Quran, that the heaven contains weaved ropes, and the function of ropes is to produce a pulling action between its ends. So these ropes, the function of these ropes is to produce a pulling action between their ends. And how they can produce this pulling action? Now, when they are vibrating like water waves, they produce a magnetic field, north and a south pole. So each one of these kind of basic units is like a tiny magnet. Each of these basic energy units, they're like a tiny magnets, and this magnetic field is produced due to their vibrations. So if you have a collection of them, suppose that you have 3 basic units, they will be arranged in triangular fashion, because a triangle, the repulsive force between these 3 units would be equal, and 6 triangles would compose a hexagonal shape. So we can conclude from the Noble Quran that these basic units are arranged in a hexagonal arrangement. Now, if we compare this conclusion with what people saw, that the photons, which are the basic unit of light, they are arranged in a hexagonal fashion. So glory be to Allah Almighty. So we see how we can learn all branches of knowledge from the Noble Quran. So also another thing in physics. So I'm giving examples, and the complete details and the exact details for this can be found on my website. Now, if we want to know how would these energy units, how would energy propagate from its source? Now, going back to the unified law, since Allah teaches us that He created everything from water, this means that energy propagation in creation would be exactly identical to energy propagation in water. So suppose you have a pond, water pond, and you throw a rock in that pond. You see that energy propagates from the source with concentric circles. So we can conclude from this that in creation energy will propagate from the source in concentric circles as well. And a 3-dimensional space that will be concentric spheres. And if we think about energy in creation, we see that acoustic energy, sound energy, propagates in spheres, concentric spheres. Light energy propagates in concentric spheres as well. Mechanical energy, concentric spheres. So we see how understanding this basic law that Allah God has made from water every living thing explains all behavior of energy in creation. Now, another example on how to apply this law in chemistry, the science of matter. Now, Allah states in the Quran in chapter 10 verse 61, part of the verse is the following: and nothing is hidden from your Lord, the weight of an atom on the earth or in the heaven, not what is less than that or what is greater than that, but it is in a clear record. So Allah states in this Quran verse that nothing is hidden from Allah God Almighty in His creation, not even the weight of an atom. Now let me give the following example to explain this Quran verse. Suppose that somebody wants to convince you that he wrote a book. Now if he tells you that he knows the title of every chapter in the book, that would not necessarily convince you that he wrote the book, because he might memorize the names of the chapters. But if he told you that he knows every letter in the book, that will convince you that he wrote the book, that he knows every basic unit comprising that book. Likewise, Allah states that not even the weight of an atom is hidden from him in his creation, meaning that not even the basic units in creation is hidden from Allah Almighty, which is something that Allah states calls the atom. So Allah teaches us that the basic unit comprising matter is an atom. And Allah, we see that He links the property of the weight of an atom to its description in the Noble Qur'an. So Allah links the weight of an atom to its description in the Noble Qur'an, meaning that the weight of an atom is the single most important property which governs all behavior of matter, which explains all the behavior of matter. Now, this is one fact. Another fact that we can learn from the Noble Qur'an, that Allah the Almighty states in chapter 79 verse 30 the following: and after that He made the earth in the shape of an egg of an ostrich. Now, Allah states in the Noble Qur'an, we can learn from this verse, that Allah created the earth in a shape, in a geospherical shape, in a shape of an egg of an ostrich. Now, that's the shape of the earth. Now, another fact in the Noble Qur'an, that the methodology of Allah in creation does not change. So, which means that since Allah created the earth in an egg shape, we can conclude from this that the atom would have the same shape of the earth, would have kind of an egg shape for the nucleus. Another thing we can learn from this kind of similarity between the design of the earth and the exact similarity between the design of the earth and that of an atom, that the earth has a north and a south pole, and thus the nucleus of the atom would have a north and a south pole. So if we have three atoms, they would repel each other and they will be arranged in a triangular fashion, because that's the most stable configuration. And if we have six kind of triangles, that would form a hexagonal. So we can learn from the Noble Qur'an that the atoms in creation are arranged in a hexagonal pattern. Now, going back to the unified law, if we look at the arrangement of atoms in water, how Allah the Almighty arranged atoms in water, we see a hexagonal shape. So we can understand why Allah the Almighty designed atoms in creation with the same hexagonal shape. And that's one thing. Another aspect, that atomic bonding. Now, since Allah designed the atom with the same design of the earth, so the atom and the heaven of the atom contains gravitational energy. It contains weaved ropes. So we can learn from this that atoms have the ability to attract objects and other atoms. And also remembering that Allah states that the weight of an atom is the most important property. So if we have, for example, a material is composed of heavy atoms like iron, so it has a lot of weaved ropes in its heaven, of strong gravitational force. So it will attract other atoms with a large number of ropes, which means that it has a strong gravitational force with other atoms. And thus it would have a large strength, a large stiffness, a high ability to conduct heat. Now, if you compare that to a light atom like glass, it would have a small number of weaved ropes in its heaven, and thus a small gravitational force with other atoms, and thus lower strength, stiffness, and lower ability to conduct heat. So we see, brothers and sisters, how the weight of an atom is the single most important property which governs all behavior of matter, explains all behavior of matter, as Allah teaches us in the Qur'an. Now, Allah also says in the Qur'an in chapter 30 verse 30 the following: so set you your face towards the religion of pure Islamic monotheism, Allah's fitrah with which He has created mankind, no change in their being. In khalqih, His creation, that is a straight religion, but most of men know not. So here from this Qur'an verse, we can understand that Allah the Almighty created everything in fitrah. What is fitrah? Fitrah is the the shape, the characteristics that Allah designed everything in when He created everything. So another time, fitra is the shape, characteristics, function that Allah created everything in. And we see that everything in creation tries to resist any change in this kind of state that Allah created these objects in. For example, a physical object, when you apply a force on it, it will apply the force in reverse, an opposite force. So it's trying to resist you. Why? Because the atoms in that object are arranged in hexagonal hexagonal shape. So any change, when you are pushing that object, you're trying to change this hexagonal shape, so it will resist you. For example, physical objects, when they are subjected to electromagnetic field, they produce another field opposing that field. They are trying to maintain the state that Allah created everything in. So we see, brothers and sisters, how this unified law explains chemistry. And these are just examples in chemistry. Everything can be built on this unified law. And the details for this aspect is explained in my website in full. The details of everything I said about this lecture. Now, another example in biology. Now, if we look about the cell, the human cell, we see that the outer skeleton of the cell is composed of a hexagonal mesh of links. If we look at the cell and the skeleton of the cell, the outer casing of the cell, we see that it's composed, Allah created and designed the links in a hexagonal shell, which is exactly similar to the design of atoms in water. Going back to the fact that Allah has made from water every living thing. And this hexagonal shape, there are a lot of advantages. One of the advantages is that the hexagonal shape can cover maximum volume with the minimum amount of material. The hexagonal shape can cover maximum volume with minimum amount of material. So this ensures that the atoms are stable, light, they have a light weight. Also, since Allah Almighty created everything from water, and linking that to a verse in the Qur'an, in chapter 41 verse 39, which states, and among His signs that you see the earth barren, but when Allah sends down water to it, it vibrates and grows. So in this part of the verse, and the continuation is the following: verily, He who gives it life surely is able to give life to the dead. Indeed, He is able to do all things. So we see that in this Quranic verse, Allah states it vibrates and it grows. So Allah links vibration to growth. So and this explains, and we see that in water, the energy is vibrating energy. So this explains that the signals we can acquire from the brain and the muscles have exactly similar shape to water waves. So when we acquire signals from the human brain and from the heart and from the muscles, we see that these signals have exactly the shape of water waves. Again, Allah created everything from water. And we see that these are vibrating kind of signals. And we can explain from this why objects grow. So we see from this unified law, we can explain biology and why objects grow. Also, if we think about the arrangement of Allah Almighty for light cells in the eyes of insects, for example, we see that Allah Almighty arranged these cells in a hexagonal arrangement, which ensures the coverage of maximum volume with minimum amount of material, optimization. So, and this is exactly similar to the arrangement of matter and atoms in water. So we see, brothers and sisters, how this unified law explains physics, chemistry, biology, everything can be built on this. And in my website there are further details, further examples of this. And Allah God Almighty wants a believer to be a teacher of others and not the one on the receiving end. And there are a lot of kind of applications of what I said, and huge advancements. And to know more details about this topic, please visit my website at www.quran-miracle.com and you can email me at zquran@yahoo.com, and may the peace and blessings of Allah be upon you all.